If you want to be a smarter Georgia fan, this is the video for you. I've got the latest insider notes. I've got all the buzz, inside scoop on Georgia Bulldog recruiting because as we all know, recruiting still matters. And you're not a five-star Georgia fan if you don't follow recruiting. So I've got the latest and greatest news for you in this video. So let's jump right into it, right? And let's start talking about one of the best defenders across the country, Jer Edwards, the number 2 safety prospect in America. He's out of St. Francis Academy in Maryland. He was in Athens in early February for a G-Day visit. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But he announced this week that he will be in town for a big official visit next weekend. So when Georgia's having their G-Day scrimmage, Jer Edwards, the number 2 safety prospect in America, number 49 overall prospect in the country, will be in Athens. That's big, big news. But here's what he had to say during his first visit in early February to Georgia. He said, quote, "I learned more about player development and a deeper meaning of the game when I was in Athens. They were keeping it real and letting me know that I'm a special talent, and I'm definitely a guy that they want to see in the red and black." He also has official visits scheduled for Auburn, May 30th, and Alabama, June 6th. But next weekend during G-Day, Georgia will have Jer Edwards on campus for a big official visit, and that is massive, massive news. Moving right along, one of their top targets on defense, again, in the 2026 class, Kamari Brooks out of North Oconee, Bogart, I believe, right outside of Athens, right? He is a big, big deal, top 100 player in the country. He made the quick visit to Athens for a spring practice earlier this week, right? I believe it was on Thursday, could have been Tuesday. I forgot which one. Here's what he had to say. The 6'3", 220-pound edge defender, 230, excuse me. Here's what he had to say about watching Georgia practice. He said, "My biggest thing that I learned is the way they work and the way practice is just different at Georgia compared to everywhere else. My biggest takeaway from the visit was just getting to see the players compete against each other. What makes Georgia special is it being the hometown team and the way they play the edge position." Now, I've said before, multiple times, I believe that this could come down to Georgia and Alabama. This is a local kid that Georgia is high on. He's one of the top edge defenders in the country. Actually, he's the number 10 overall prospect in Georgia, number 95 overall in the country, and the number 14 edge. There's a ton of outstanding edge defenders in the country for this class. So don't worry that he's the number 14 edge. Not a big deal. He is a top 100 player in the country from right outside of Athens. Big Georgia target. He was in town this past week. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. He made 131 tackles last year as a junior, 17 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 3 pass breakups, 1 interception, 24 quarterback hurries. This is one of the best pass rushers, not only in the state, but across the South. Big, big deal. And he was back in Athens this past weekend. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. As is Nasir McCoy, out of Buford. This is a guy that's held a Georgia offer for almost 2 years now. Here's what he had to say. He's a playmaking safety, the number 21 safety, number 247 overall. So, a decent, solid 4-star. Here's what he had to say from his Georgia visit earlier this week. He said, "Kirby continues to make sure they are competitive with great intensity every single day of practice. I have a strong feeling they are going to be national championship contenders this year because of how determined and poised the players are right now. Once again, the history, tradition, and the development for the players stands out every time I'm there." So this is a 4-star safety that Georgia fans need to keep a close eye on out of Buford High School. Playmaker, right? He's got a decent frame, 6'1", 180. He's very close with KJ Bolden, who is one of Georgia's star players on the entire roster. So Nasir McCoy, another safety prospect I think Georgia fans need to keep a close eye on. In other news, Georgia had a top wide receiver prospect or target in town in Athens this past weekend. Dylan Cope, he's out of Hewitt-Trussville in Alabama, big-time program, 6'3", 190 pounds, earned a Georgia offer on January 29th. Here's what he had to say about watching practice in Athens earlier this week. He said, "My biggest thing that I learned from watching Georgia practice is that you have to be in the playbook to learn the concepts. You can't just be a great player. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to know the playbook." He said, "Georgia's special in my eyes because they have a great coaching staff that gets after the players. They have a beautiful facility as well. When I think of a Dawg, I think of a hardworking, well-disciplined football player. He's one of the best wide receivers in Alabama and possibly across the South. He will be in town for his big official visit to Georgia the weekend of June 13th. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on. In other news, a new offer that went out this past weekend went out to a South Georgia defensive back, Travis Stevenson, who is one of the best defensive backs in the state of Georgia for the 2026 class out of Brooks County. Big-time playmaker, made plays on both sides of the ball for the Trojans last year. He is currently committed to Georgia Tech. So the Yellow Jackets were thrilled to get this guy on board. He visits Athens, and he said, you know what? This is not a bad place. And the staff said, you know what? This kid ain't half bad. You're leaving here with an offer, young man. So another big-time playmaker, long, athletic, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's one of the fastest rising defensive back prospects in the state of Georgia right now. He made 74 tackles last year, 4 big interceptions on defense. He also caught 29 passes for 244 yards and 1 more touchdown on offense. But of course, he wasn't the only visitor in town. Jay Lamar, my top-ranked running back in Georgia for the 2026 class. He was back in Athens again for a multi-day visit this past week. He was in Miami, I believe, yesterday. And this is a guy that is flying up boards for programs across the country. I think this is going to be a Georgia-Clemson battle in the end, but this is a guy that, was an unknown running back heading into last year. And as a junior, didn't line up the stat sheet because he had a senior in front of him and they shared carries. They shared the load down at Colquitt County, one of the best programs in the state of Georgia. But he ran for around 900 yards, a lot of touchdowns, caught several passes for more yards, more touchdowns. I thought I had the numbers in front of me, but I don't. But they're over on Dawg Post. That's where y'all need to be. That's where the 5-star Georgia fans are. They're on dawgpost.com, and they've already known about all this news. So to them, this is old news. To YouTube, this is very new news that has happened within the week. But Jay Lamar runs with balance. He's got speed. He's got power. He breaks tackles. There's so much that he does. He's got great vision, footwork, explosiveness. He's shifty. He can make guys miss or he can run them over. And a guy who's fresh. Again, no one really knew about this kid heading into last year. And again, he shared the load. But this upcoming season, I think he is going to be the star running back as a senior for Colquitt County. I expect him to light up the stat sheet. But he's a guy with size, speed, power, balance. He's terrific. And when you turn on the tape, it's easy to see why Georgia and a lot of other programs are very, very high on him. Another visitor who is in town, I believe today, watching Georgia's scrimmage is Zechariah Ford. He is Georgia's 4-star safety commitment. I believe he's out of Florida. Another kind of playmaking safety, hard-hitting guy that Georgia got on the commit list early. And he's going to be back in Athens. I hope to have a big-time update on him soon. But a lot of guys, again, were in town. Malcolm Gaston is an offensive lineman from South Carolina, just across the border in the Augusta area. He's a guy to keep an eye on. Another big, powerful kid who I feel like has been in Athens a ton recently. So there's a lot to know about him and other players as well. So again, recruiting matters. And I know a lot of people, say all the time, and I get it, to a certain extent. Recruiting doesn't matter. These kids are going to flip last minute. Now, every kid's different. And yeah, if it doesn't work out at Georgia, they can hit the portal. And I know NIL comes into play for a lot of these guys, but for a lot of them, it doesn't. And there are a lot of kids that Georgia signed in that 25 class that didn't flip anywhere. And they were Georgia kids. They were homegrown kids. And they love Georgia, and they're going to make a lot of plays. And those are guys that Georgia fans kind of looked over because they stopped caring about recruiting. But I'm telling you right now, this staff cares a lot. They work their butts off, every single one of them, on the recruiting trail. So if it matters that much to them, I'm telling you, Georgia fans still need to keep up with recruiting because there's a lot going on. I expect there to be a ton of prospects and visitors in town next weekend with Jer Edwards for Georgia's spring scrimmage. G-Day is always a big deal for recruits. And it'll be exciting to see, the game, the scrimmage, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see which prospects are in town. There's a bunch in town today also. So make sure you are heading over to Dawg Post to check out all the news. But the big news, not only that Kamari Brooks was in town, big-time edge defender target, not only was Jay Lamar back in town, that is a big, big deal. Carson Baker, a 4-star running back out of Langston Hughes, he put Georgia in his top 5 earlier this week. He's a guy to keep an eye on. And then Jer Edwards, a guy that I love when you turn on the film. I think Georgia has him very high up on their board. He's a top 50 prospect, again, in the country. Number 2 safety, he was back in town, will be in town for a big official visit next weekend for G-Day. So just some recruiting notes for you. There's a lot more that you can read over on Dawg Post. Make sure you're checking it out. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you learned something. Recruiting still matters, and I'll see you on the next video.